If you've ever heard someone say, if you go into a nursing home, they will take your house, you are not alone. In fact, that's probably one of the biggest fears I hear from clients. People walk into my office and say, Attorney Otto, I've worked my entire life to pay off my home. I don't want to lose it if I ever need long-term care. And others tell me, my neighbor said I should hurry up and put my house in the kids' names before it's too late. And I understand why people are worried. For most families, their home isn't just their biggest financial asset. It's where they raise their children. It's where birthdays were celebrated, holidays were spent, grandchildren came to visit, and memories were made. The thought of losing that home is frightening. I'm Attorney Otto, and I'm a Florida estate planning attorney, and today I want to separate fact from fiction because there is so much misinformation about nursing homes, Medicaid, and what really happens to your house. So let's start with the biggest myth where this is concerned. A nursing home does not simply show up and take your house. That's just not how it works. Nursing homes don't have some automatic legal right to seize your home just because you're receiving care there. If that's what you've been imagining, you can stop worrying about that part. But here's where people get confused. Just because a nursing home can't simply take your house doesn't mean your home is automatically protected in every situation. The truth is somewhere in the middle. And that's why it's so important to understand your options before there's a crisis. I remember one time I had a client come into my office who was absolutely convinced she needed to deed her home to her daughter immediately. And by that, I mean she wants to change the name on the deed, the title from her house into her daughter's name. And she sat down and she said, Attorney Otto, I don't want the nursing home taking my house. I just need to sign it over to my daughter, right? I asked her one simple question. Why do you think that's the best solution? And she said, because everyone is telling me that that's what we're supposed to do. The problem is everyone isn't always right. Signing over your home to someone else is one of the biggest financial decisions that you will ever make. Once you transfer ownership, remember, it may no longer legally be your house. That means that your child's financial problems could become your own. What happens if your child gets sued, for example? Or what if, God forbid, they get divorced, or if they file for bankruptcy? What if they pass away before you do? Those aren't things people usually think about when someone tells them to just put the house in your kids' names. I also explained that transferring property can have Medicaid implications and tax consequences depending on the circumstances. The point isn't that transferring your home is always wrong. The point is that it's rarely something you should do without understanding the consequences. Another client of mine once said, Attorney Otto, my house is completely paid off. Doesn't that mean it's protected? And it's a fair question. But whether you have a mortgage on your home or it's free and clear isn't usually what determines whether your home is protected. The better question is, what are you trying to accomplish? Are you trying to qualify for Medicaid someday? Are you trying to protect your spouse? Are you trying to preserve your home for your children? Are you trying to avoid probate? Those are completely different goals, and different goals require different planning strategies. You see, one thing that I have learned over the years is that people often go searching for one magic answer. They want something to tell them or someone to tell them, just do this one thing and then everything will work out. Unfortunately, estate planning doesn't work that way. I sometimes compare it to building a house. You wouldn't expect every house to use the same exact blueprint, right? Some families are large, some are small, some have young children, some have blended family situations, some own businesses, some may have children with special needs. Every family's blueprint is different. And estate planning, every family's blueprint is different. Estate planning is exactly the same. Your plan should be built around your family's goals, not your neighbor's experience or your friend's experience. And here's another common misconception I hear. People often assume that everyone who goes into a nursing home ends up on Medicaid. That is simply not true. Some people pay privately. Some have long-term care insurance. Some have significant retirement savings. Some qualify for benefits. Every family's financial picture is different, and that's why I always tell clients to stop looking for blanket answers. Instead, start asking better questions. What are my options? What planning opportunities do I have? What happens to my health, or if my health rather changes 5 years, 10 years from now? What's going to happen for me, not what happened for my friend? Those conversations are far more productive than simply asking, can they take my house? I remember another family came to see me after their father had suffered a stroke, and no one expected it. The week before, he was literally up, about, seemingly healthy. He was mowing the lawn. Now the family was trying to choose a rehabilitation facility, understand insurance, figure out who could pay his bills, and make legal decisions all at the same time. They weren't just emotionally exhausted, they were overwhelmed. They were trying to figure out so much because they hadn't done the planning in the years ahead, and now trying to do it during one of the hardest weeks of their lives. And that's exactly why I hope that families can avoid this by taking the necessary steps. You see, planning isn't about expecting something bad to happen. It's about making sure that your family isn't forced to make life-changing decisions while they're already carrying the weight of a crisis. So one of the questions I hear all the time is, Attorney Otto, should I get a trust to protect my house? My answer is always the same. Maybe, maybe not. A trust can be an excellent planning tool for the right family, but it's not a magic document that solves every problem. The same is true for a ladybird deed. The same is true for gifting your home to your children. Each of these tools have advantages and each has disadvantages, and each should be used for the right reasons. That's why estate planning shouldn't start with the question, what document do I need? It should start with, what am I trying to accomplish? What are the things you're seeking to do? Do you want to make it easier for your family if something happens to you? Do you want to avoid unnecessary court involvement? Are you trying to preserve assets if long-term care ever becomes necessary? Are you trying to protect a surviving spouse? The answers to these questions help determine the right planning strategy. Another question I get sometimes is, Attorney Otto, when should I start planning for long-term care? Now, hopefully before you ever need it. That's really the short-term answer for that. Because here's the reality. When people call me after someone has already gone into a nursing home, our options may be very different than if we had started planning years earlier. That's true in almost every area of estate planning. Planning ahead gives you much more choices. Waiting until there's a crisis often limits those choices. I've also had clients say, well, I'm only in my 50s. I don't need to think about this yet. And I understand why they would feel that way. Nobody enjoys talking about aging or long-term care. But the truth is, none of us knows what tomorrow holds. As many of you know, one of the reasons I practice this area of law is because my own mother was diagnosed with Alzheimer's at just 53 years old. She was in her early 50s when dementia started. And so I always tell people there is no such thing as too early. I've worked with families whose lives have changed because of a stroke, others because of a fall, others because of an unexpected diagnosis. Life has a way of changing without asking our permission. And one thing I've noticed over the years is that fear causes people to make rushed decisions. They hear someone say, well, the nursing home is going to take your house, and they panic, or fear is going to be the thing that drives them to something. And let me tell you, fear is understandable, but fear is not a strategy. You need to use education, planning, having the right conversations before making major financial decisions. Those are the types of things that you need to incorporate when you're doing a plan. I've seen families save themselves enormous stress simply because they came in for a consultation before making any changes. Sometimes the answer was much simpler than they expected. Other times they learned about risks that they never had considered. Either way, they were able to make decisions, informed decisions, not emotionally based ones. So if you're worried about your home, here's what I would encourage you to do. First, don't panic. There are a lot of scary headlines and oversimplified videos online. Unfortunately, many of them leave out important details. Second, don't make any major decisions based on advice from friends, neighbors, or social media. Their situation may be completely different from yours. What worked for one family could create chaos for another. And third, have the conversation now, not after there's a health crisis. You don't want to have this time go by without you making a step and then live to regret that later. You don't have to know exactly what the future holds. You just need a plan that's flexible enough to help your family if life doesn't go according to plan. The bottom line is this: a nursing home does not simply take your house, but long-term care planning is still incredibly important. The earlier you understand your options, the more opportunities you have to protect yourself, to protect your family, and the assets you've spent rather so much time, so much energy building up. Estate planning isn't about living in fear, it's about creating peace of mind. It's about knowing that if life takes an unexpected turn, you've done everything you reasonably could do to help make life easier for the people you love. And if this video helped you at all, if it helped to clear up some confusion that you've heard about nursing homes and about your home, I'd love for you to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share it with someone who's been asking these same questions. And also drop your questions in the comments. I would be happy to answer them on air in a future episode. Chances are the people that you know, they've been hearing the same myths that you were. And in my next video, we're going to answer another question I hear almost every week. Should I add my child to the deed of my house? It sounds like a simple solution, but it can have legal, tax, and financial consequences that many people never see coming. We'll talk about the pros and the cons and the alternatives that you should know. Until then, plan wisely, live confidently, and I'll see you next time.